Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramp, here to usher you in. It's January 30th. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of news, a lot of things that are happening in the world, and even here in Missoula. As we're talking about, heck, even the weather's starting to get a little bit warmer out there, and you can expect temperatures to be into the mid to low 50s going on to this next weekend. So yeah, there's the kind of the cold snap is kind of behind us, and one of the things that are happening here in Missoula is the Unified Development Code, which they're geared towards trying to figure out exactly what these amendments they're going to be trying to push for more landscaping, parking, all that kind of stuff, because as the city of Missoula is reckoning with the fact that there is a lot of nuance to this UDC, a lot of the city council amendments are trying to put more requirements on the UDC, which usually works counter to a lot of development that's happening in Missoula because it's just another barrier rather than another a form of flexibility. So the word flexibility is going to be used quite a bit for staff to recommend for the city amendments to kind of help reduce some of those requirements for developers to help build in more housing, height requirements, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot going on for sure, and we're going to kick things off with, after all those amendments and everything hammered to the Unified Development Code, the city presented this to the public again on Monday for what was going to be the final vote, turned into yet another series of back and forth with the community along with city staff to figure out keeping Prost in addition to code reform and creating parks and green space either through cross development with the city or in cash in lieu for parks elsewhere. Commercial rezoning on how buildings should adopt the urban form of businesses in the front, parking in the back, besides the suburban look of sidewalks, parking, lot business. This tool is for commercial buildings to encourage walkability and safety for folks in high traffic areas. Before we get into it, Mayor Andrea Davis talks about Missoula's response to ICE in Minnesota.
But I just wanted to say how our heart is broken here in Missoula, and that our heart is with Minneapolis, Minnesota, and those residents and the community this evening and across communities across the country. And it seems almost trite to move on to agenda items, and I apologize for that. This is a business meeting of the City Council. I'm going to have to do that. But I did not want to start out our meeting without acknowledging the heartbreak that many people are feeling in this country right now.
All right. And then we also have Chief Mike Collier. He came to spoke about addressing the elephant in the room during a later part of the meeting, but I brought it to the forefront before we get into the UDC. So here's our police chief.
I'll speak about what we're doing locally, internally, and describe to you that we do not do business in that manner. So, what I'm talking about is people see federal agents, presumably federal agents, jumping out of unmarked vehicles, wearing uniforms or equipment that does not identify them as an agency, does not identify them as any person by name, and then furthermore has their identity covered with some type of face covering or mask. All of those things are prohibited by the Missoula Police Department. So we have strict policy in place about all of this. You can cover your face in an official capacity under basically two circumstances, like the COVID pandemic to protect yourself, or in an extreme weather event, to keep you from getting frostbite while you're doing your job out there. But in either of those circumstances, if somebody asks for you to remove that face covering so you can be identified, they are required to do so.
All right. There's a little bit of tidbit information for y'all looking to potentially deal with ICE in the future. Who knows? We want to make it clear that Missoula police are transparent and that the federal agents should adhere to local law enforcement as they do their operations. He also mentioned that the training for ICE agents was about 6 to 8 weeks. Unclear what the training was or is. Mentioned new officers in Missoula have a 35-week period for training. That was clear. He was there to reassure the public about protecting their constitutional rights and provide services that reflect the best interest of the Missoula population. While I spend more on this topic, we cannot keep up with the national narratives happening 24/7 in our own community, as we're talking about many things that are happening in our community. We the People Day Amendment is a proclamation of the city to bring awareness to the rights of the people above any outside entity. So here is Sue Kirschmeyer talking about this and just kind of rehashing the importance of our in the country of the people for the people.
Since the 2010 U.S. Supreme Court Citizens United decision, it is so important to take every step we can to elevate the call for the U.S. constitutional amendment. Why? Because it's here at home that national issues become personal, as we all realize. Local issues of towns across the nation are hit by the policies that money and corporations have imposed. Housing, ag land, our right to find our own solutions, I could go on. They're all affected. Standing in support today, as you all did, demonstrates that we Missoulians know the kind of headwinds that we face as we struggle to balance the pressing needs of our community. Nevertheless, we proclaim that we will move forward together. After all, the proclamation began under Mayor Engen, who fought tooth and nail and won the battle to rescue our water company from the global private equity company, Carlyle Group. With that example before us, we can go forward.
All right, so that was for We the People Day. And as we're actually finally getting into the parts of the Unified Development Unified Development Code, Katie Thompson talks about the Midtown Commons, hoping that this would reflect the needs for this green space. This also is going to help catapult me into the next topic, which has a lot to do with landscaping. A lot of people in the community spoke on this in length. So this is about the Midtown Commons and how she wants the city of Missoula to use the UDC to put in more requirements for the developer rather than creating what they're already creating right now.
I just wanted to make a comment on the Midtown Commons proposal, and I'm sorry, I will keep showing up, just begging for a much larger park with consideration of what size of development is going to go in that area, and also in consideration of this new zoning that's going to go in with the increased population. I just am begging you guys to give adequate green space, as well as I think I've kind of caught wind. I'm sorry, haven't found time to watch all of the meetings on the proposed zoning, but I've heard that it's being proposed that the green space is less.
All right. And indeed, they're working on flexibility in terms of green space overall. And, you know, it's a good place to jump into the UDC, as Mike Nugent talks about changes and misconceptions through these amendments and some of what folks are thinking the city is doing to reduce the green space.
I think that coverage of some of this process has given a little bit of a false overview of what we've done as far as walkability goes. So I want to make clear that nothing council has done has waived sidewalk requirements on any street or street tree requirements whatsoever. The amendment that was covered in the article last week that referenced walkability was actually about how buildings are placed on a parcel, and that conversation included how that can impact the pedestrian environment, but it did not eliminate any sidewalks coming to those parcels or on the street, and there's still boulevard requirements and street tree requirements. So I wanted to stress that, and of course people are welcome to give public comment saying that we're right or wrong or indifferent, but I want to make sure that that is accurate there. And I think that more than anything, the headline in the photo might have misled, because Greenfield or like a subdivision requirement would absolutely have sidewalks, and the photo was of a subdivision in the middle of the field. So I think that it misled what the conversation was.
All right. So for even further clarity, as we're, while the city has been altering some of the language in the land use plan to adhere to recent comments and concerns of the public to focus more on affordable housing, Derek Goldman reflects on the many amendments the city has proposed, and this is for public comment.
The core of East Missoula does not meet assessment criteria of UR3. Staff suggests, and I quote again, keeping the integrity of the place type at front of mind. We would not simply issue UR3 without ensuring the corresponding infrastructure was in place. If parcel does not meet assessment criteria assigned to UR2, staff's suggestion would be to update the place type map as well to the place type that corresponds, end quote. I ask the council to follow staff's methodology and amend the land use plan to change the place type of the core of East Missoula to limited urban residential and the place type map to LUR2 to match the actual land use and match with the surrounding neighborhoods. Thank you.
And often during this time as well is that East Missoula is basically become the an interesting point to this Unified Development Code, as the outliers in between mixed-use type areas have been kind of targeted as those high-density kind of places. Parking and green space, vacating for the more housing is yet another component in creating housing. Prost was made in full in green spaces when needed, but doesn't offer the overall need of green space for the sake of green space, but a bigger plan with parks districts. Abby Huseth, Climate Smart Missoula, also reflects on those amendments in terms of landscaping. So where am I? Where is Abby? Okay, here she is.
In short, we support keeping the staff recommendations as written in the adoption draft for landscaping, activity areas, and the cash in lieu provisions. We understand some concessions and changes have already been made that may reduce housing density somewhat compared to the original adoption draft, spot zoning, reducing building heights, etc. However, I think even with these amendments, this UDC is a great improvement on housing from current Title 20. And it's also possible that these direct housing density concessions could be revisited in Phase 2 updates as we see how projects play out on the ground. But our green infrastructure is not an optional piece of our community's development puzzle that can be compromised away. Study after study has demonstrated the overwhelming social benefits of access to close-to-home green space, not to mention the climate benefits, and has been shown in other cities it's much harder and more expensive to turn pavement and cement back into green spaces, and a lot of communities are doing that right now. And we need tools to ensure that our parks can handle increased use with increased density.
Okay. So, yep, that was a big part of that moving forward. Climate impacts are on the back burner of many people looking to increase housing. You either cut parks or cut the grass. Park districts can be used their tax revenue to help create bigger models of green infrastructure. Prost is the main goal, to have these green spaces within a 15-minute walk. Landscaping activities were a major point for many people's impression of how Missoula is growing and avoiding an urban jungle. Colin Lane, MMW Architects, responds to many of the comments of landscaping, aka green space.
Those recommendations, adopting those is a vote not just for housing, but a vote to protect our trees, to protect our walkability, and to protect our ability to build urban housing. The code as written without amendment requires a suburban level of landscaping, and suburban housing is a great option that I want us to have. But I don't want it to be a mandate. The impact of having suburban landscaping and suburban apartment buildings means that we can build less housing than we can build now. And if we adopt a code that requires less housing than we're able to do now, that is a travesty. I encourage you to adopt those amendments, to protect our wildlands, allow us to build inward, allow us to build densely, and allow us to build walkability.
Okay. So a big part of this has to do with the bigger picture, which is Missoula is surrounded by a bunch of natural environments in the first place. And so a lot of that idea to have those components to be put into place, rather than having it to be more parklands, dedications, suburban areas where you have maybe one or two parks in the wider scheme of things, by creating more urbanized zones, you have a bit more closer to amenities for those kind of public transits to go into those green spaces, while also adhering to Prost, which their ultimate goal is to have a park within a 15-minute walk. Mike Robinson, also a developer, a developer, echoes many of Colin's concerns about providing housing as basically the bottom line of what a lot of Missoulians during these reviews, studies, meetings, all this kind of has led up to.
people say deep-pocketed developers. I'm not a deep-pocketed developer. I'm pretty shallow pockets. We have to pinch pennies pretty hard to try to get a project together. One of the things that I'm very proud of the project we built on 6th Street is that our rents, we had no subsidies going into the project. It was 100% private financed. And we were able to keep rents low enough that a large portion of our residents there just get Social Security, and they're able to afford a place in our apartment building. So our rents were kept low. A big reason why we were able to do that is through density. So we have 36 units on just less than a half acre, about 40% of an acre of a lot. That density is key in order for us to make affordable units on the private market. I know subsidized housing could do something different, but private developers, that density is key. And these amendments, I think, are critical in order to do other projects in Missoula on that scale. So I speak in favor of the proposed amendment for landscaping.
Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts, a lot of different things. Mike made the 36 unit 55 and older living off of 6th Street. Of course, if you weren't here during that time, I spoke about it a little bit during City Council about a year or two ago. I just remember there was a lot of interesting back and forth because this was the Franklin to the Fort neighborhood, and a lot of people in that area were hell-bent on not having this as a thing because it was 3 stories rather than traditional kind of single stories, some 2-story buildings in the Franklin to the Fort area, but that whole kind of area is definitely one of those kind of weird spots because the city has no plans to do any kind of major overhaul and development. Perhaps, the thing is that they want to have a bigger, allow for more height, which, the big change I think was 35 to about 45 feet in height for buildings for this. That's the big UDC change. It's not that big of a deal, but regardless of that, Mike made, consensus is because when you think about it from a developer as a person, they have to still pay their employees to do all their work, and if they're not working, they're still paying their employees, and that's where you get those issues where you're spending of $20,000 a month with all these delays that happen in place, and having more requirements causes more delays, while the UDC is supposed to be there for guidelines, an idea to have an understanding for a developer to plug in and play so they know exactly what to do when developing those areas. Be like, oh, okay, so this has this thing, so now I can know what I'm going to be building, the vision is clear, and the guidelines are there to keep me in line for when I do develop. So as we get further down, Jana Richter talks about the changes to Missoula and how this code isn't going to be overnight, and this is what she had to say.
Developers, builders have been attributing our shortage to parking, to setbacks, to landscaping, to permitting. We really need to be addressing these meaningfully, and also thinking about the fact that building takes years. The thought that we are going to get 10 4 or 5-story buildings in the next year or two on the west side is just not what is going to happen. It's going to take time to build our way out. And if we are sticking with the mentality of let's be overly prescriptive now and we can loosen later, we're just getting ourselves one more year into the, deeper into the housing crisis that is already actively displacing people, that is already leaving a lot of people to make some really tough decisions about whether or not to put down roots here, myself included.
Yeah, and roots, regardless, is that the people who have been here in Missoula, we have a fairly large aging population in Missoula as a whole. I guarantee that most people in Missoula have a better life in general, just health-wise, because Missoula is a lot closer to the natural environment more than other areas in the United States as a whole, and so having more of those green spaces elevates a lot of health regardless, and so within the next, 10, 15 years, a lot of those aging population folks are going to be, aging out of their existence. I hate to say it like that, but that's just kind of how it is. It's there's still that people still believe that the boomers are going to be around over the next 20 years in whole. So that's the idea that we're building more houses. Yes, we have more populations, more people growing into it, but we're not addressing the elephant in the room, which has to do with the fact that the aging population is aging. But if anything else, the codes are going to be made to add guardrails and guidelines. Like I said, space is limited, and so far Missoula has met that growth slightly with a new era, but it seems more and more gutting of secondary things to keep up with the demand has put Missoula against the holistic wishes of traditional neighborhoods. This also contributes to the rapid growth of outlier communities like East Missoula, who have little to no zoning from the county level, opening the doors to infill to accommodate Missoula's infill hesitancy. While council go back and forth on these amendments, Mike Nugent brings up the point about flexible green spaces, and this is what he had to say.
We've had developers send in emails that kind of outline how if we keep things as is, they could probably do the same number of units, but they're going to have to do them as luxury units and aim them at a higher demographic than the AMI, because, you know, when we put some of those extra regulations on them, that adds to the per cost unit. And that means that to cover that payment every month, they have to raise the rent. So based on all that feedback from, I think, some well-respected people who have worked in development who are in this room right now who have given us comment, I think that by only tying that as a permanently affordable option, it is going to limit the people that it helps, because there are people struggling to afford to live in Missoula that will never qualify for a subsidy. And we need to make sure that we aren't just a community that has subsidized housing and very high-end housing.
Yep. A lot of the new people moving into Missoula have a good chunk of change coming into Missoula, and a lot of people who are fortunate to be here have the benefit of having that equity. Not to mention, of course, you know, if you've owned a home in the last couple of years, you had to deal with the fact that, you know, higher taxes in terms of the property calculator for adjustment for inflation kind of hit the Montana property owner pretty hard the last couple of years. And if you look at all of these like a pie, by creating affordable housing, you run the risk of other parts taking the brunt of those costs. Instead of all properties on site matching, you run the risk of unbalancing housing where developers have to put up the costs on everyone or some more than others. All the same ingredients in that pie, but people pay differently to help pay for smaller pieces. So it's interesting to kind of think about when you really kind of break it down like that. But Sean Patrick McCoy, City Council, talks about overregulation in terms of the UDC.
Our standards, even with lots of options to make choices, are still creating unsurmountable hurdles to good projects. That projects everybody in our community would like to see move forward. And what we're trying to do is find a balance. It's not going to be perfect. We're trying to find the balance that Mr. Melson articulated well on Wednesday, Ms. Becerra is articulating well. We're trying to come up with a balance that we can put in motion, and then this is very important, and then we are going to evaluate and come back and look at these things. I, for one, will fight for that tooth and nail, because I recognize how important that is to this process. And that's just kind of a long way of saying that I am in support of this motion, because for me, it gives us a little bit more flexibility to try and strike this balance here and now in the moment. And then as we go forward, these debates are going to continue. You are going to hear us bring these things back up and see if we can do something better.
All right, and so a lot of these amendments moving forward were to address, you know, potential future development planning. The balance isn't more housing. If anything, it's pretty much the same in Missoula with, you know, more loopholes to fill and ease for developers to move forward on creating more housing, but not too much. So pretty much the moderate change in our code, eliminating green space requirements for deed-restricted housing, got the amendment into the code reform to support permanently affordable housing options. While that's all fine, we'll talk about parking amendments in this next meeting for land use and planning. So as we get into the last bits of my city council report, it's back again to the Wednesday's meeting. It wasn't supposed to happen because they wanted to get this plan done by Monday night. It looks like they're going to be pushing it, but at the same time, just because they passed the UDC doesn't mean that they're not going to be changing through amendments and alterations throughout pretty much forever, because I just remember when they passed the Up Missoula land use and planning code back in 2018, they still tinkered with it every single month. Well, they might have had a couple of months off here and there, but they pretty much tinkered with it a couple times a year since 2018. And the first parts of this meeting has everything to do with more elbow room with development and having green spaces. Overall, it had a lot of rehashing, but a good chunk of comments sounded like Amy Schillerberg, Climate Start Missoula, talks about this a little bit more.
In addition to the climate benefits that we've talked about, there are thousands of robust scientific studies from around the world that trend toward the same basic conclusion. Green infrastructure, we're talking trees, shrubs, a bunch of grass, a tomato plant, just about anything living, significantly improves mental and physical health, economies, learning, social cohesion, and individual and community safety. You can find studies demonstrating increased graduation rates, lower ADHD in kids, significantly lower crime, reduced anxiety, lower ER visits with a bit of nature. Reams of good science to inform our decisions.
All right. So that was Amy Schillerberg with Climate Smart Missoula. She's worked with the city of Missoula through climate, housing, and community planning. It has a lot to do with creating the PROS and the green space as to have more green space and allow for infrastructure to kick in as cash in lieu for developers to support parks in the future while balancing those smaller green patches from landscaping requirements. Lisa Davey, Common Good Missoula, talks about consensuses to the UDC, and this is what she had to say about this.
Citizens and residents of Missoula have been working really hard on this alongside staff to say we don't love, right? Like there are definitely people who are not super excited about having 4-story or 3-story buildings in their neighborhood, but we were able to explain we need housing. This is a way to do it responsibly. This is how we do it without sprawl. And the compromise there is, but we're going to keep some green space, right? People are afraid that the Slant Street neighborhood, Lewis and Clark, Lower Rattlesnake are going to turn into downtown Manhattan. And we know that's not what is intended, but the staff recommendations for these landscape requirements help explain that. And they're necessary, right? A lot of our lots in Missoula are 50 to 60% green space now in those neighborhoods. And the highest amount in the reductions, right, is down in title or in the plan before you as not amended is like 25%, 20, 15, 5. That's a lot less than 50 or 60.
All right. And so, yeah, I mean, those are some of the consensuses in building an urban residential environment. In the first place is to make reductions in landscaping as a whole, from the city council to land use and planning. And city council, some more, we see swinging back and forth to what we think we want and how the UDC is already addressing many of those concerns with balance. However, with amendments in place, having more restrictions on landscaping could also make the process of development even longer. They spoke in length about landscaping requirements amendments, but staff wanted more flexibility rather than an obstacle. And another chunk of the meeting had to do with parking, which is another one of those things that they're trying to figure out, reducing those requirements to have more more housing units in lieu of less parking. So Myrta Becerra for City Council talks about those reductions in parking.
Point in the future support something like this, but I don't think we're ready. And the reason I say that is because I think that if we're going to decrease the requirement for parking, we need to increase our investment in important and critical transportation infrastructure in order to reduce the number of vehicles that we're going to have on our streets. So having a well-connected system of bike lanes and sidewalks and transit, all of those things, in my opinion, need to be in place in order for us to say we don't need the parking. So at some point in the future, I think once some of those investments are made in the community, I would be in support of this, but not right now.
All right, so we've basically made a city over the last 50 plus years to be more suburban based, and as a result trying to kind of force the urban gentrification, urban sprawl, infill kind of thing, to be able to do that, you can't unsuburb Missoula when they're spending the lion's share of Missoula's development in car with bike and sidewalks coming in last in priorities. The amount of cars per person in America is 1.5 per person, and parking for everyone working or living downtown in Missoula is already terrible. And part of this also has to do with the fact that why would you want to have a terrible policy that's already affecting downtown Missoula to expand further down? And part of this has to do with the fact that our parking commission is the one thing that reins a lot of those parking in as a whole. And like thinking about it in terms of the parking commission moving over to the hip strip on that side of town with more development on the way moving forward, and the need for parking, especially when they decide to build the old Missoulian building into that new luxury condo building that they're trying to do right now. And you could, if you've been to the parking lot area, it's not a great area for a lot of parking, and they're going to be building a lot more infrastructure. Well, who knows where they're going to additional building things and for parking in general are they going to be able to have there in the first place. So that's kind of how I want to end it, since I didn't get too far into the land use and planning meeting, which was about 7 hours long total. This so far these amendments on parking and landscaping were kind of put off until what they called phase 2 of the UDC, and this is kind of like all those amendments, all those little changes they can do later on down the line, because they're pretty much going to try to stick as far and as close to the staff recommendations, because for the most part the staff have been working on this for well over a year just to try to get everything right, back and forth, a lot of land use and planning committee meetings, and so far so good. These are the last tidbits of changes the city wants to make, and the staff have made it clear that the intentions were not to ignore those issues, but to allow more flexibility in reducing parking and landscaping without developing getting in the way with not providing those, but have a model to reduce rather than remove completely. Makes sense? Not really, but the whole idea is for flexibility, and that's the big part of this. And up next, we have some programming that is airing on MCAT. If you get a chance to watch any of the Bonner history tidbits, here is a little taste of the Salish Trail to Bison and Beyond with Tim Ryan.
As has been the case since 2009, this program is being recorded by MCAT via a Missoula media grant, and it'll be available quite soon on YouTube. We'd also like to take a minute to remember 3 men who made their long careers at or in association with the lumber operations here in Bonner, and were friends or working partners with some of you here today. We lost Ed O'Lean just before Christmas, and both Bob Symes and Jim Hill just this past Wednesday. All were huge parts of the history we've tried to capture at the History Center, and the stories the 3 of them must be chuckling over somewhere now. Our hearts go out to Judy O'Lean and the families and friends of all 3 men. Usually we would do a land acknowledgement at this time, but we've got the guy that's going to be talking about it for the next 2 hours, so we don't need to do that. We're extremely honored to host a guest who bridges the gap between the ancient past and our contemporary world. Tim Ryan is an artist, an archaeologist, a professor at Salish Kootenai College, and an enrolled member of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. Tim's work goes far beyond traditional research. He's a master storyteller who's dedicated his life to reviving the tools and lifeways of his ancestors, the very skills that allowed people to thrive in this region for thousands of years. Today, he'll take us on a journey titled Salish Trails to the Bison and Beyond. This talk is deeply rooted in the landscape we call home, including just out this window. We'll learn about the profound relationship between the Salish people and significant sites like the place of big bull trout, and I'll let him pronounce that one. here at the...
All right, so there's a little taste of the Salish Trail to the Bison and Beyond, and this is now available on MCAT's YouTube page, MCAT TV Missoula. A lot of great community lecture series, a lot of great stuff happening through MCAT. Anything that happens here at the library, especially a lecture or series for history buffs is a great example. Rattlesnake Stories and more are all available on our YouTube page, MCAT TV Missoula. All right, let's jump right into some movies that are coming out this weekend. We have this movie called The Iron Lung, which it's not necessarily like a drama about a guy who lives his whole entire life in an iron lung. This is more or less a sci-fi horror video game adaptation of essentially a guy who gets stuck in a pod that's basically called the Iron Lung, and he goes into a river of blood. So it's like an ocean of blood. It's like the whole planet or something is like covered in like something that looks like blood, but who knows what it is, but there's monsters swimming around in it, and he's basically stuck just listening to all the monsters on the outside of his hole, potentially killing him, and he's just a guinea pig trying to figure out exactly what's going on, because it's just an expedition to try to figure out how to get off that planet of blood ocean or whatever. I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be okay, but it's, it's like one of those movies, just if you like the YouTuber Markiplier, it's one of those movies that kind of like springboarded like YouTube popularity into movie type stuff, and it's basically one of those things where he kind of distributed, so it's going to be at the Roxy Theater, it's going to be just in like smaller theaters, it's not going to be in the AMC. It might be, depending upon if it makes a lot of money. Who knows? So this is like one of those kind of like self-made movies, so enjoy. Then we got Send Help. From the director of Spider-Man 1 through 3, Sam Raimi tells a horror story about two people stranded on a desert island with their boss. Ugh. Enjoy an overworked employee having to take the toll of listening to the boss outside of work. Gross. Rachel McAdams works with the tech bro, making money and making her life hell before and during the events of being the only survivors of a plane crash. Triangle of Sadness, eat your heart out, because Sam Raimi wants to do his own version of this as well. Then we got Shelter. Jason Statham, done. That's all you need to know, as a guy is probably another character who you shouldn't mess with, using his fists like and his military black ops insert action badass man fights his way to the shelter or whatever. I assume the gal in the picture is also on the run right behind him, but she's not as important as him because he's the important character in the movie. Seen it, and we'll probably see it again because it is your typical Jason Statham movie where he's a guy who is just like, you shouldn't mess with that guy. They mess with that guy, and then things escalate from there. Here are a bunch of movies that are also coming out. We're going to try to speed right through them in the speed round. Islands. Since being stranded is a metaphor for bad scripts in Hollywood, comes Islands, which is about a guy who is stuck in a resort as an on-call tennis pro for rich people looking for his meal ticket out of there. Then we got Back to the Past. It is a Chinese-made movie about the Qing dynasty to change one character's destiny and have a better shake of life after the fact. This isn't like future or modern. It requires a jade amulet or whatever to travel maybe like 1 or 5 years in the past when they had to move on forward. Anyways, then we got The Love That Remains. It's an Iceland movie made in Iceland about love and loss and this constant retelling of families dealing with the void left behind by a parent's death. Indie drama, have fun with that. All right, so those movies that are coming out that weekend, we have your last Winter Days short that I'm going to be showing you. I'm going to try to bring back dubbing stuff next month, but I wanted a kind of like nice break for January. So here is the promotion by the very kids of our Winter Days camp.
Oh, good to meet you. Yeah, that's okay. Yes. Sure. Really? Hey guys, guess what? I got upgraded to McDonald's. Now here's the thing. One of you has to take my place because I'm leaving. Now get back to work.
Hey, did you hear about that new promotion coming up? I think I might get it. I've been working here for 12 years. I could really use that pay raise. Do you think I do a good job? I think I do pretty good at it. All right, I'll let you get back to work.
Do you need something? I'm so excited to have my own office. You think you're getting the promotion? Yeah, it's gonna have the new computer and coffee maker. If anybody deserves that promotion, it's gonna be me. Because I had to throw out my coffee machine 2 weeks ago. See? Empty. And I have no computer, so I have to write on paper. Well, the boss likes me best. It doesn't matter who he likes the most. It matters who works the hardest. I'm here working my butt off. You're there on the couch like a lazy couch potato. The boss gave you an office over there, but you don't even work on it. Whatever. Okay, guys, I'm gonna go use the bathroom.
Okay, everyone, eyes on me. All right, we're family meeting. All right, guys, we need to figure out how to get rid of this Pius guy. He's clearly not suited for office. Do you guys have any ideas?
I think we should kill him.
Okay, well, maybe let's not do that. That's over-exaggerating a little. I think we should go down to the boss's office and talk to him.
Good idea.
Hey, guys.
Oh, shoot, Pius! I just forgot my phone.
That was close. All right. Cool. Kennedy, you and me are going to go down to the office. And Landon, we need you to just stay here and stay in guard. Hey, boss. We really need to talk to you. There's something urgent that we need to talk about.
What is it? What is it so important? Just come in, tell me.
Okay, we need to talk about Pius. Hey guys. No, so we're doing this.
Okay, so what you're saying is I shouldn't give him the job because he's sabotaging everyone else and not doing his work.
Yes!
Okay, I'll consider it. But I have a lot of work to do. Sure.
Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was just finger guns.
The party's in 5 hours. That's when we'll figure out who the boss picked to be the new boss. Yeah, work. My wife just divorced me. Anything to give that raise? Yeah.
Okay, everyone, listen up. Listen up. The party starts in 10 minutes. That's when the snacks are gonna come in. But before that, I have to tell the person who gets the manager job. It could be any one of you. It could be him.
Rolling action.
It could be her. It could be that guy in the back that I've never seen in my entire life. I don't know what he's doing here.
Hey guys. Hello.
He was not even supposed to be here. I've never seen him in the office. But the new manager for the office is... Pius!
No! No! No!
I knew we should have killed him.
Well, back to my cardboard box.
What guys am I?
All right, welcome back. Let's talk about some news that are happening in the world today. Well, gold is up past the 5,000 per ounce. An article in the Missoula Free Press got to me the other day about the changes in terms of people vacationing. While, you know, tourism is dying and luxury vacations are becoming the norm. You know, it's one of the things which makes sense, since the boomers who have acquired the vast majority of wealth over the years have to deal with the high cost of senior living, medical bills, and why not throw in vacations as well? Many of you may be well aware that an older gal who took a permanent cruise vacation paying for 52 weeks of the year and exposing the fact that senior living would be more expensive than the luxury cruise that she's been on. According to the University of Montana's Institute for Tourism and Recreation research figures, the number of people who visited Montana last year declined by 3.6% to 13.8 million compared to 2024. However, non-residents spending in Montana jumped 12% in the estimated $5.6 billion range. Of course, last week, they reported that Canadian travel was down by more than 740,000 people, resulting in impacts to the state economy. While less people are taking vacations because of the pricing, this seems like it's moving towards the last chunks of change the seniors will spend in their golden years. The most common age bracket for visitors in 2019 was 60 to 65, and now it's 65 to 69, which kind of makes sense because that's been 6 years later. About 74,200 Montanans, roughly 13% of the state's workforce, worked in hospitality recreation in 2024, according to the Montana Department of Labor and Industry. Between 2020 and 2024, the leisure industry was the third fastest growing, adding an addition of 1,200 jobs annually. So think about it in terms of Plaza Branch, but more so. So what was the complaint about billionaires using Montana as a playground again? Just saying. Sorry, this happened very fast, and Montana is not benefiting from the influx of tourists using our roads and services and only paying for essentials like food, travel, and stays. The indirect costs can be felt in slower emergency responses and potholes in the roads. Emergency service in Missoula are increasing, with 9 new firefighters joining our town, with the levy starting to really show its effects to support expanding services. The $7 million grant passed in 2024 on top of the 3-year grant to hire 20 new employees. Expanding operations seemed like a no-brainer. The funding is partially offset by staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grants. The Missoula Current also reported that the university's research spent upwards of $150 million in research over the last year alone. The $149.9 million worth of expenditures include grants to supported by the Department of Defense, looking to research and helping military personnel reduce motion sickness for Navy pilots, and even traumatic brain injuries research for former vets to regain balance as well. The research at the University of Montana has been ongoing and has major projects from cancer research to even tasked with solving the COVID vaccine during the Operation Warp Speed. Grants and more have been reduced from the past year. This year, UM submitted to 720 grants or contacted proposals in 2024. That number dropped to about 564 grants in 2025. This will likely result in fewer awards in the next coming years. Think of it like this, as peaking at the university as they got to become more creative with the research resources moving forward. Montana also Public Radio broke a story about the altering of how the Public Service Commission can get filled. So back in the day, or currently, it's an elected position, and there's 5 segments that control Public Service Commission across the state of Montana. A legislative committee wants to do a study reshaping the state's utility by creating an oversight board, and this bipartisan proposal will have state officials appoint commissions to the Public Service Commission in lieu of holding elections for those 5 seats. The folks dealing with legal problems within the communities to the point where they had to vote out the president of the Public Service Commission last fall. This could also be a major change in how our energy sector is regulated, putting more pressure on boards to fill those 5 seats that up to this point have been this way since the start. And while Montana is one of 5 states using this formula, exploring this option could change how we regulate and control utility companies like Northwestern Energy. All right, so those are some of the news tidbits that are going around here in and around the city of Missoula. I also wanted to, let's see if there's anything that just kind of popped up this morning just for the sake of news. So it looks like there's a new article from Montana Current by Laura Lundquist. They're looking to have a lawsuit for EPA's backing of DEQ's reduced water standards, citing that it's illegal. So on Monday, 3 plaintiffs of the Upper Missouri Water Keep, the Flathead Lakers, and Confederate Salish and Kootenai tribes filed a complaint in Great Falls Federal District Court alleging that the EPA violated the Clean Water Act and Endangered Species Act when approved Montana's native water quality standards for nutrients, including nitrogen and phosphorus, in October. The EPA's approval followed more than a decade of industry and municipal opposition to Montana's numerical standards, which the EPA upheld until October after the Trump administration took over. So there's a lot of things going on with that. And of course, Montana's Constitution has for a clean and livable climate, including acts in terms of making sure our water is clean. There's a lot of laws to protect that in the state of Montana, and to a point that the federal government would have to create laws in place to supersede those constitutional initiatives of Montana. So those are some news and some items related to that and more current news. But of course, this weekend is going to be wrapping up the Downtown Dine Local Week, so it's going to end on February 1st. Of course, I didn't get a chance to mention any of this from last week's show, but explore the vibrant downtown dining scene with special menus, deals, and more from your favorite local restaurants, cafes, and bars. Whether you're dining in, grabbing takeout, or sipping cocktails, is a perfect chance to try something new and support local businesses. Stroller Strides Mommy Me is a continuing workout class that happens daily, Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. at Bonner Park. Little Club's Play Group is something that is pretty much ongoing. It's indoor fun for kids at the Sports Barn. It's starting to get a little bit warmer out there for you folks, but if you want to stay indoors and stay active, Sports Barn, Mismo, and Roots Acre Sports Center are great indoor facilities. Not to mention there's some great dance studios here in town for people to keep on moving while also staying inside and warm. Spread Your Wings, Butterfly Quilt Lifelong Learning Center does one of many classes. And in this classes, you create a butterfly-themed wall hanging or lamp quilt inspired by Missoula Quilters Guild of 2026 show theme, Spread Your Wings. Designed for intermediate quilters, this class explores color selection, resizing, and piecing techniques to bring your butterfly designs to life. Tiny Tales here at the Missoula Public Library. It's all about getting kids exposure with reading. This happens every Friday at 10:30 a.m. and every Saturday they have story time at 10:30, and then they do an afternoon Tiny Tales at 3. Lunch at the Missoula Senior Center. This is ongoing daily, Monday through Friday. And then, of course, the Poverello Center does their breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day to provide folks with nutritious meals and of course, the food pantry over at the Missoula Food Bank is another great resource for folks as well. Yarns and Watercolor every Friday at noon on the 4th floor of the Missoula Public Library. That's where it's at. That's where it's all happening here at the library every Friday at noon on the 4th floor. All Abilities Art Club at Base. This is for folks with disabilities looking to get in contact with resources, but also have a club where they can do all abilities art. Downtown Missoula, a history walking audio tour. This is an online thing. So we also did a shoot just recently about somebody who does these history tidbit tours of Missoula. And so they spoke about it, and we'll have this on our YouTube page, MCAT TV Missoula, at some point soon. Young Adults Writers Group, this is an ongoing thing at the Missoula Public Library every Friday at 3:30 p.m. just to help improve kids' writings. Beethoven Under the Stars Planetarium Show. This is at the Payne Family Native American Center at the University of Montana campus. They're doing a show at 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. with music by Beethoven. There's the Pottery Date Night at a clay studio of Missoula at 6 p.m. Potted clay, all that kind of stuff. It's a great resource here in town. They are nonprofit. They do a lot of great shows every first Friday, which I'll be probably talking about next Friday. Karaoke at the Jack Saloon, Sacred Cacao Ceremony with chocolate at Sacred Alley at 7 p.m. Pale People playing some rock music at Cat Monks at 7. Owen Caulfield Band at the Old Post at 7:30 p.m. Trent Band at Sunrise Saloon playing some country music. The Spills is going to be wrapping up your Friday at the Union Club. And as always, we have the Clark Fork River Market inside the Badlander locals only until May, and before they move on over outside. We also have the Farmers Market, the Winter Market in the Southgate Mall next to Shields in their annex. Museum tour at the Missoula Art Museum. Learn about art here in Missoula. Free admission, free expression. MCAT Saturday drop-ins every Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. Your kid 8 to 14 gets to do some stop animation. Saturday Tiny Tales here at the Missoula Public Library on the second floor at 3 p.m. How to Train Your Dragon Symphony at the University of Montana Denison Theater at 3 p.m. You like orchestra music, but this is a great way to get your kids involved and interested in the Missoula Symphony as they bring the magic of How to Train Your Dragon's orchestra to life. Dance Till Dusk. This is a Badlander component for a lot of ladies who want to go dance together and also be home by 10 p.m. So it's a Dance Till Dusk at the Badlander with early showings for people who just want to get off work, unload, do some dancing, and then just go home at a reasonable time. Viva Montana Latin Night at Elks Ballroom at 7 p.m. Saturday. Dueling Pianos at Stable Hoop at 8 p.m. Alex Kaufman doing some comedy at the VFW at 8 p.m. Karaoke at the Westside Lanes. Also at 9 p.m. is the Monks doing the Full Moon Party featuring the Golden Troubles. Will and Aaron Jennings is going to be Union Club, and DJ Chris Moon is going to wrap up your Saturday at the Badlander at 10 p.m. Sunday, Winter Wonderland Drag Brunch, Rooster Cafe, Burleson Breweries. This is the organization off of Reserve and Spurgeon, those gray buildings. It's the cafe. They're doing a drag brunch with drag queens. Enjoy that, starting at 10:30 a.m. on Sunday. Then they got the Sunday Stitch and Bitch at the Space. Hey, that's what it's called. I just like saying it. Every Sunday at noon. Salsa dance class at the Rocky Mountain Ballet Theater at 1 p.m. Pinball tournament odd pitch at 4 p.m. Winter figure skating, winter figure and scene sculpture class. It's not skating, sorry. It's like the Clay Studio of Missoula. This is on Sundays. The Clay Studio of Missoula does a lot of intro to potteries and a lot of intro classes there. So they're going to be working on figure and scene sculpturing classes at 5 p.m. NFL bingo at Tamarack, 5 p.m. Open mic comedy at the VFW at 8 p.m. every Sunday, and then karaoke at the Sunrise Saloon every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. And I get a little bit of a easy exit for you guys. You know, I don't have to rush towards the end. I got about another minute and a half left in the show. You know, we got some camps and other stuff that are happening here at MCAT. If you're interested in learning more about MCAT, you can go to MCAT.org. We are also providing a lot of those spring break camps. So if you want to go to our website, MCAT.org, you can go under our youth education. You can go under spring break camp, and we have a brand new page for you to sign up for our kids camp. This is a week-long spring break camp happening from April 6th through the 10th. A great way for kids to get involved with media, filmmaking, stop animation, a little bit of everything that MCAT provides, but for the most part, kids provide the creativity and we provide the tools to help them build their stories. So that's something that we kind of always do on Saturdays, but for the most part, our camps are a little bit more geared towards having us involved and very, very, very hands-on and allowing us to guide them and create those videos like what we did for our Winter Days camp and what I showed earlier in the show. So without further ado, I wanted to thank you guys for joining me. And for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramp. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Take care.